Good evening. Welcome to the Development Management Committee. I'm Councillor Kieran Bowker, the Chair of the committee. Before we start the meeting, I need to make the public attending aware of the following. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm goes off, please make your way out of the nearest emergency exit and gather in front of Runnymede Hall. Members of the committee, meetings of the committee, should I say, are live streamed on the internet on the council's website. If you're seated in the public area of the council chamber, it's possible that your image may become part of the broadcast. And lastly, may I ask all present to switch mobile phones to silent? Thank you. May I ask the Development Management Committee members present who are seated in the chamber in the row in front of me to introduce themselves, stating your name only, starting on my left.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jamie Hunterman.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Grace Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Peter May.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carol Sage.
Good evening all. Councillor Rob Lillis.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Diana Jones.
Councillor Gareth Howlett.
Evening all. Councillor Matt Cortez.
Thank you. May I ask the officers present to introduce themselves again, starting on my left.
Thank you, Chairman. Mitchell Kitts, Planning Manager.
Good evening. Sonia Worthington, Democratic Services Manager.
Good evening. Loretta Hill, Civic and Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening. Angela Law, Assistant Director for Legal and Democratic Services.
Thank you. May I ask any other members present to introduce themselves?
Good evening, Chair. Councillor Kate Nutt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor John Knott, St Michael's Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Rhys Langley.
Good evening, Councillor Tim Copsey.
Good evening, Councillor Laurie Dixon, Thunsley South.
Evening all, Councillor Tom Gibson.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence? Sonia?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for Councillor Fuller and Councillor May is substituting, and we also have apologies for Councillor Savage and Councillor McPherson is substituting.
Thank you. Item 2 is members' interests. Members, in the interest of openness and transparency, it should be noted that item 4 of the agenda, relating to Abbeyfield House, 53 Chapel Lane, Hadleigh, is an application made by this council. This does not preclude you from taking part in the debate and voting on the matter as the planning committee for this authority. Members, are there any other interests to declare? Councillor Lillis.
Thank you, Chair. As the Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Housing, who has publicly supported the acquisition of Abbeyfield House and its intended use for temporary housing of our residents, I wish to declare an interest and ask to be excused for the remainder of this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. If I could ask you to absent yourself from the chamber. Item 3 is minutes. Members, there's a typo on the agenda at item 3. There was no meeting on the 12th of May. Are the minutes for the Development Management Committee meeting on the 8th of April agreed? Thank you. Item 4, Abbeyfield House, 53 Chapel Lane, Hadleigh. Members, we have an addendum to the report. Have you all seen a copy? Members, we have before us an application for the material change of use of the site from sheltered housing to temporary accommodation. I'll now ask the planning officer to present this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is acceptable in principle. Local planning policy supports residential uses in residential areas that are defined as such in the adopted local plan, especially where proposals seek to repurpose and optimise an existing building in a sustainable location for much needed affordable housing, particularly when the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of land for housing, as is the case here. there is no special policy protection offered to care homes in deference to sheltered accommodation. Concerns have been raised over the proposed manner and level of occupation. It should be borne in mind that based on the present occupation rates and manner of occupation of the council's other facility, at least 1/3 of those units would be occupied by single people. Some of the units are interconnected, allowing for the creation of larger spaces for families. Given the accommodation is temporary and based on the expected uptake, the level and manner of occupation is considered acceptable. The external changes to the building would be minimal, save for the proposed window treatment on the first floor rear elevation to protect the privacy of occupiers of nearby homes and to prevent direct line of sight from the upper floors of the proposal into neighbouring rear gardens. The inclusion of new doors serving the ground floor units, and more obviously the inclusion of solar panels on the roof. Taken in around, these changes would not impact the character and appearance of either the host building or the immediate street scene in which the site is located. Future occupiers of the site will be generally encouraged to use a nearby country park for exercise and other outdoor activity. Notwithstanding, the council appreciates the importance of an outdoor area and landscaping scheme that not only provides an attractive and usable outdoor space, but also serves to buffer the occupants of nearby homes from unwanted disturbance. For these reasons, a planning condition requiring the submission of an updated landscaping scheme to be fully considered in consultation with the neighbours surrounding the site and Essex Police to the satisfaction of the scheme would be implemented prior to the occupation of the building. Concerns have also been raised about the parking provision. Again, based on the manner of occupation and occupation level of the council's other site that maintains 17 units, one vehicle is currently accommodated on this site. Future occupiers will generally not have access to a vehicle for day-to-day use, and no additional provision is made for on-site parking as part of the proposal. Permission will need to be given from the operator of the site for vehicles to be parked thereon. The Highway Authority will raise no objection to the proposed parking arrangement, either in terms of its safety or its capacity. Likewise, despite concerns raised to the contrary, the existing bin store space is sufficiently large enough to accommodate the increased need. Notwithstanding, a planning condition has been recommended to ensure that the future bin store is fit for purpose. Concerns have also been raised over the security of the site and the safety of its more vulnerable occupants. The council shares these concerns and has consulted Essex Police accordingly. They have advised that the proposal should meet the nationally recognised Secured by Design accreditation, which is a police-led initiative that focuses on incorporating crime prevention measures into the design of buildings and their surroundings. A planning condition has therefore been recommended, ensuring that the proposal meets this safety standard prior to occupation of the site. As mentioned above, this will happen in tandem with their consideration of the new landscaping scheme. For the above reasons, the proposal is policy compliant and is recommended for approval, subject to the suite of conditions attached to the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mitchell. Ms Johnston will now speak in objection to the application. I understand that she is also speaking on behalf of 3 other residents who are also objecting to the application. Ms Johnston, please make your statement at the microphone. You have 3 minutes in which to make a statement. When you get near to the end of that, I'll ask you to very briefly sum up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening all. I'm speaking on behalf of many local residents. 19 objections were submitted and several others wanted to speak but couldn't due to the restrictions. We've consolidated our key concerns into this short statement. Our main objection is the overdevelopment and flawed design of this proposal. It appears focused on maximising occupancy, not on creating a safe, functional environment. By squeezing too many people into this space, the council introduces serious risks for both residents and the wider neighbourhood. Crucially, we still don't know how many people are intended to live here. The plans mention single and double occupancy, but no definitive number has been confirmed. Without this, councillors and consultees cannot make an informed decision. Please confirm the intended maximum capacity. Security is a major concern. The design includes multiple separate entrances, and the management office is upstairs, away from the main access point. Essex Police have warned that vulnerable residents could be at risk of exploitation. A safer layout is essential, with a single secure entrance, internal corridors, a ground floor communal area and 24/7 on-site staffing. A local resident consulted a head of housing at another authority who confirmed that they would never house multiple single residents together without round-the-clock staffing due to the risk of antisocial behaviour. We were told families would be housed here, and yet the plans only show single and double rooms with possible interconnecting doors, which would still be unsuitable and unsafe for families with young children. We appreciate confirmation that 2 disabled bays are now included in the parking, and we welcome the commitment that future development must align with Essex Police's Secure by Design scheme. But this highlights that the current layout is not yet fit for purpose. Outside, green space is minimal and parking remains inadequate. In the Hadleigh Gardens development, the council required 10 parking spaces, including 1 for a housing officer. Why is this standard not applied here? We request that any approval includes a binding condition for a permanent 24/7 housing officer with direct contact details for residents and a guaranteed response to antisocial behaviour. Only 4 out of 10 statutory consultees have replied. For a proposal of this scale in a residential area, unlike Camperdown Road or Hadleigh Gardens, that's not sufficient. A similar appeal in Bristol was rejected due to noise and impact on neighbours. We also asked the council to confirm that it has fully complied with the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992. Based on the process so far, we may have to pursue judicial review if approval is granted in its current form.
Could I ask you to sum up now? We're just coming up to 3 minutes.
The plan tries to do too much, too fast, with too little care. Please reject it and return with a safer plan that is more modest and respects both the residents and the neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Ms Williamson will now speak on behalf of the applicant in support of the application. Ms Williamson, please take your place at the microphone. Again, you have 3 minutes in which to make your statement.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Sarah Williamson, and as agent to the application, I am speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposal. As stated, the proposed change of use to provide 19 self-contained temporary housing units for families who are homeless or facing homelessness would be accomplished through the conversion of a former sheltered housing facility within a residential neighborhood. The council is currently unable to meet its duty to accommodate these families within council-run properties, instead making up the shortfall through the use of expensive nightly let accommodation. The proposal, if permitted, would meet this housing need in a more supported, sustainable, and cost-effective way. The site is ideal. The existing layout facilitates the proposed conversion, and the location allows walkable access to shops, services, open spaces, and public transportation. The proposed size and occupancy of the units is considered acceptable and is comparable to similar schemes approved in the UK, with adjoining rooms in this scheme adding additional flexibility. It is an efficient use of land supporting a specific type of housing need. Experience shows that the facility is unlikely to reach maximum occupancy, as families are housed by family group. A recent snapshot of the existing council-run scheme shows an average occupancy of 1.5 people per unit, with over 1/3 of the occupants being children. The parking provision is also considered to be sufficient, with minimal car ownership documented at those schemes. Potential residents would be assessed for numerous risk factors, and those with a checkered past or additional needs would be placed in specialized units and not at this location. A successful management system already in use by the council would monitor the upkeep of the site and the behavior of the residents using tenancy agreements, regularly monitored CCTV, and staff presence. Concerns would be investigated and, if required, warning letters issued and tenancies ended. The applicant has worked proactively with the council and in response to comments to provide a solution that is acceptable for future residents and would ensure that there is no unacceptable impact on existing residents. This includes amendments to the rear external area through a conditioned landscape scheme, layout changes which reduce external movement to the rear, and curfews to be included within the tenancy agreement. Discussion with Essex Police, which is ongoing, has led to the addition of safety measures such as lighting, secure fob access, and safe entrance zones, with Secure by Design accreditation to be conditioned. In summary, the proposed use is a residential use congruent with its residential context that would provide a clear social benefit, providing necessary, well-managed accommodation to vulnerable families. The proposed development is consistent with national and local planning policy, and therefore there are no planning reasons as to why permission should not be granted. We therefore respectfully request that members endorse the recommendation of their officer and approve this application subject to the conditions that have been outlined. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Williamson. Councillor Kate Knott, Ward Member for Hadleigh, St James's Ward, will now speak on this item. Councillor Knott, if you would like to speak from there, that's quite acceptable. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. This opportunity to address the committee tonight. This proposed change of use for Abbeyfield has clearly resulted in mixed views within the community. I have had conversations with many that applaud this proposal and emails from some who live nearby that object to it and have worries about it. Members, I personally support the change of use for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is right to look after our own residents who become homeless in our own borough rather than house them in costly hotels or bed and breakfast accommodation often outside our area. Secondly, it must be noted that if our council had not bought it for homeless people in our own borough, almost certainly a London borough would have bought it to house asylum seekers. We would have then had no control or vetting over those people. We know London boroughs were seeking to do just that.
Can I ask members in the public gallery not to comment? This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. There is a distinction. Thank you.
That said, we do have a duty to those of our residents that live nearby and have genuine concerns regarding a perceived risk to their safety and the safety of those living in the premises should approval be given tonight. We should not ignore those concerns. As a result of concerns raised to me by residents in my ward, I requested a meeting with the case officer, Mr. Kitts, yesterday. I'm grateful to him for making the time to meet with me and listen to those concerns. I understand that he has also met previously with some residents and plans to do so again in the future. I am also grateful to him that during that meeting he gave me an assurance, that assurance being that he would suggest that any approval of this application for a change of use would stipulate that future development would have to be subject to continued liaison with Essex Police and conform to the strict accreditation for Secured by Design. The Secure by Design accreditation would address many concerns raised about security and safety. It would also ensure that Essex Police are satisfied that measures are in place for personal safety, prevention of crime and antisocial behaviour. Members, I would urge you on behalf of those residents that have contacted me that if you are minded to approve this change of use tonight, that you ensure that Essex Police Secured by Design regime is baked into any approval that you may give, and that developers of the site must then work closely and consult with Essex Police. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Knott. Do members have any questions for the planning officer about the planning application? Please note this is the member's opportunity to seek clarification from the planning officer on any matters they are unclear of regarding this application. Members should refrain from making statements about their views on the proposal. These should be expressed in the debate section of the meeting. Who would like to speak first? Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. When we was on the site visit, you was discussing the family arrangements, the family room arrangements. If all of the rooms are capable of either being individual couples or families, is there a facility for, should it be a family setup and the parents potentially are in a different room, that we could disconnect the kitchen area and the water from where the children would be sleeping.
Yes, I understand that is possible.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Huntman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've got 3 points. Number one, just an assurance, this is purely for people living in Castle Point, families and residents who are homeless in Castle Point.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Number two, you've got, you said in the report that the residents are unlikely to have a vehicle. So in which case, why have we gone to the expense of putting a electric charging point in?
It's commensurate with all permissions these days. So.
Yeah, and finally, which was alluded to by the young lady that spoke, I've no reason to believe there would be antisocial behaviour, but if there is, is this council going to have a zero tolerance towards it in respect of, I know the other lady that spoke talked about tenancy agreements. Well, my understanding is that there'll be a licence to occupy. So, and also going back on the other point about having someone there 24 hours, is that something we could not consider possibly,
In terms of the antisocial behaviour issue, that is, we're straying into the bounds of, you alluded to yourself, we're straying into the bounds of something that could and should be controlled by a licensing regime. It's not, it doesn't weigh against, it's not a planning matter, it doesn't weigh against this scheme. It is a concern, I get that, but I'm just making the point. Sorry, what was the second part?
The second part, the young lady mentioned about having someone there 24 hours. Is that not something we could look into? It doesn't seem to be rational.
I don't think that's a planning consideration with...
That's not been proposed, that's not what's in front of you at the moment. Whether that could be, that would have to be taken up with the applicants.
Thank you.
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you again, Chair. One of my points was, again, the point of wasting money on electric vehicle charging points, but you covered that. Secondly, with regards to the CCTV that we'll have installed, do we know where that would be monitored and how quickly there could be a response if there was an issue? I appreciate that may not be directly
I don't, because I don't have any details of that at the moment, so.
Would anyone else like to ask a question? Okay. Members, the Planning Officer's recommendation is that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix 1 and the 2 additional conditions set out in the addendum to the report. For the purposes of debate, I move the recommendation. Councillor Huntman, as Vice Chairman, will you second the motion?
I will second that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Please note that members should only speak once during the debate section of the meeting. Who would like to speak first? Councillor Huntman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt there's a need for this, and I can understand perfectly well the reasoning behind it. I understand it's not a planning consideration, but it would be nice if the applicant would consider the issue of having a member of staff on there at all time. So that of course, you can't give an undertaking, but maybe that's something you could look at and would be open to discussion about. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. Much like my colleague, I don't think any of us deny that there's a need for it in the area. It seems nonsensical that we're sending our people at great cost outside of the borough, and it is something that's needed. I've got several questions, however, the majority of them are operational and rather than pure planning. So I have to support
I would really rather we were talking about, bear in mind it's a debate section rather than a questioning section, which has already passed.
No,
and if we could stay to issues relating to planning considerations.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. As the need is greater than the concerns, and we've been reassured that all concerns are being addressed by Councillor Knott, this is something that we need. We've got vulnerable people. We're paying a lot of money for bed and breakfast in other boroughs, Southend, Rochford, and if we've got homeless people, then we have to look after our own. And being Castle Point, we're assured that it will be Castle Point residents, then I don't have a problem with it.
Would anyone else like to speak from the committee? Members, the motion before you is that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions outlined at Appendix 1 and the 2 additional conditions set out in the addendum to the report. May I have a show of hands, please? Those for the motion. And that is unanimous. We'll be happy to pass on any of those non-planning considerations to the relevant housing officer, by the way, just as an addendum. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you very much and good night. The meeting finished at 19:26. Thank you.